Hello, everybody. Welcome to Subtle Asian Book Club. We are a book club dedicated to reading books by Asian authors. I'm Alexandra, and I'm here with my co-host Tiffany, and we're super excited to talk with Sara and Nadia, who are the authors of Squire, which is our May book of the month. I forgot what month it was for half a second. But thank you guys for joining us. Can you please introduce yourself and your book, maybe books, as a quick icebreaker? What is your favorite book so far this year?
Ooh, that is extremely difficult to answer. I've read so many good books so far. So my name is Sara Alfageeh. I am an illustrator and creative director based in San Francisco. And I've been drawing for about, I want to say like maybe professionally, like 5-6 years now. I've worked on things like Star Wars. I've made Marvel characters. I've done a Google Doodle, so a whole bunch of stuff. But right now, I'm mainly focusing on video games. I'm the co-founder of One More Multiverse, a role-playing game company, and I am very busy doing children's books. My latest picture book is going to be out sometime next year. I just wrapped up the work on that, and it's keeping me quite busy. Yeah, I feel like all of my projects are steadily growing younger in audience. So it's like I did like adult fiction, I did YA, I'm doing a picture book, like maybe next time it's an alphabet book. Nadia, what about you?
Yeah, hi, I'm Nadia Shammas. I am a writer who does comics. I do prose, and also right now I've been spending a lot of time doing games. I'm working on a game that's coming out later this year called Thirsty Suitors with Outer Loop Studios. It's about a girl in her mid-20s who, you know, who amongst us ended up, of course, raining havoc throughout her romantic teen years, kind of playing people, cheating on all of her partners. And she runs off with the mayor's daughter when she's 21 instead of going to college. And now they've broken up and she has to come back home and face the consequences of all her actions. It's very, it's very it's like a South Asian team, which is really incredible. So it's like incredibly kind of focused on kind of like representing the South Asian American experience. It's kind of in the Pacific Northwest, but it's also very goofy and like funny and lighthearted. And very Scott Pilgrim-y in a way. So it's really up my alley, but I'm still doing comics also. I'm working on, like, Sara's been going younger and I've been going older. I'm working on a Dead by Daylight series, which is coming out in June for the characters Legion, which I'm really excited about. I have a YA kind of horror comedy graphic novel coming out in October called Confetti Realms, which is about 4 queer teens from New Jersey who sneak into a mausoleum on Halloween for funsies and then ending up getting transported to another realm where they now have to collect teeth as a quest to go home. Yeah, so I've been doing just like a lot of really weird and indulgent, like kind of whatever I want type stuff, which has been really fun. So yeah, a lot of video games. I've done both Marvel and DC work, but right now I'm kind of just focusing on doing the goofy, I guess, the goofy and the horror. That's where I'm at.
Wow, you guys are
love
so
that.
cool.
And then,
Oh, thanks.
yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't know how to respond properly.
I was like, this is so much of what I love. Alexandra and we were talking earlier, we were both from LA and we're going to Disneyland later this week. And we're like, oh my God, when you guys said the Marvel stuff, we're like, that's so exciting. And all the different comics, very excited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, I Ms. Marvel.
Our heart is with the Squire, but anytime they let us get anywhere close to Kamala-Khan, we're like, give me
No,
her.
same.
Please.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I'm swearing off all, other people's projects. I just want to do stuff that I own. And they're like, Ms. Marvel? And I was like, fine, I'll go back.
No, same. I did the like this kind of middle grade Ms. Marvel stretch thin book, and it was like Sara helped me with the original development as well. So, and it was really amazing to get to do this. It was very like bucket list. And we did Avatar together too.
Yeah.
We did
We did an Avatar: The Last Airbender short comic. That was fun. That was
like,
for the we got to we got to draw and write Uncle Iroh in his shop
going on a date. It was so great.
Oh my gosh.
That was free comic book day 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm pretty sure we can find all of these on your website, but for people who don't know, are there other places to find it, or like where can we find like all of these?
Yeah, everything we mentioned, you'll probably find a link to it somewhere on my website, which is sara-alpha.com. And honestly, you Google either of our names, or you check out Squire, you're going to see it there. I don't know if you want me to answer some of the questions that we see in the chat, but I see some people being like, are these comics published or self-published? Nadia and I primarily work in published comics. So our work with HarperCollins is what led us to Squire, and we look forward to many more years working alongside them.
Yay!
Lots of love in the chat.
The Atla one is that was a free comic book day one. I'm not sure where you could find that. I think
it's
you
still
could
on
look.
The Dark Horse
It's
site.
It's still on the Dark Horse website. So I think
it's on like a million subreddits.
Yeah, I think if you look up like Avatar: The Last Airbender free comic book day Uncle Iroh, you will find it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll definitely be reading that right after this live.
So I'm going to jump us right into some of the questions. So Squire was your debut graphic novel, and we all loved reading it. It's quickly become a fan favorite and was even nominated for the Goodreads Award last year in the graphic novels and comics category. Can you tell us a little bit more about your path into writing, what inspired you to write this story, and how did you guys go about bringing it to life?
Yeah. So Squire first began as actually a homework assignment of mine in college. So I was in my third year, and I think I was like trying to drop out of school like every 2 weeks. And I was trying to like just focus on my semester because I was starting to get client work, and my work was taking off online, and I was like, I can quit now, right? And then my agent and my mom both were like, stop it. And so I was working on this assignment that for the first time like felt really self-indulgent, and it was for a concept art class. And I was like, I really love fantasy. I love Mulan. I love these tropes of like small girl and big guy going on a grand adventure. And I kind of just like knocked out these characters in this Middle Eastern inspired setting just to see if I could. Again, it was homework. It was an exercise. But I threw that online, and
And some of that concept art's actually in the back of the book, like that original kind of homework design, and you can see how different it was from the final product.
Yeah, it changed so much, and part of that reason was because after some of my artwork was like getting a lot of attention online, I got reached out to by an editor at HarperCollins who was like, do you want to do a book? And I was like, no, that sounds like so much work, actually. And I was right. But then 2 weeks after that, I had another person, knocking on my door being like, do you want to do a book? And I was like, all right, that's 2 in a month. Maybe that's a sign to pay attention. But I really was scared to do this on my own because I'd never done like a long form project like that. So I was poking around online, and, there's only like 5 Arabs in all of comics. And Nadia was one of them. And she was the only one under 40. So I was like, hello, let's chat.
Yeah, it was I remember when we found each other on Twitter, it was actually like the first time we met on Twitter was because the first comic project I did was a crowdfunded anthology called Corpus, which I'm type 1 diabetic. And so this was an anthology kind of about like illness and all the ways it can be experienced. And when I found Sara online, when I was like looking at artists, it was like another young Arab woman. It was like the Spider-Man pointing meme. I was like, oh my God. Yeah. And then, so we obviously started talking like immediately. And then, so Sara reached out to me and was like, hey, I just want to talk to see if we even like where we connect on. And yeah, we found
a first date.
Yeah, very much so. And it was like, and it was funny because we basically found out that like, yeah, we had very similar touchstones growing up. Like we were both huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fans. We were huge Full Metal Alchemist fans. Mulan was very formative for us. So like we were like, okay, yeah, we come from similar places, so we want to do like a similar thing story wise. So when I looked at Sara's homework assignment, I was immediately inspired by the environment art that she did. And I was like this kind of Middle Eastern fantasy setting would be perfect. So we kind of decided to take that and run with it. I think that we ended up making everything besides kind of the environment stepping stone, everything else we came up with together, and it was brand new except for Daruk, whose character design was so good that I saw him and immediately was like, no notes, perfect, put him in the book.
Yeah, our
Yeah.
our one-armed janitor
Yeah, we both
definitely.
love the like large, grumpy father like esque figure so much that we were like, oh yeah, no, perfect. And so we kind of we started talking for like on the phone for months, just doing kind of the world building, character building. Sara at one point came to New York, and we like went to dinner and didn't eat anything, and
Not
Sara
a
was writing on the
bite.
table about the ending. We like
Yeah.
plotted the
There
ending
was
that
it was
way.
this Italian restaurant, and they had this like paper tablecloth, and I had a few pens, and we're like, we need to figure out this final act. And by God, we did. And there's just like insane notes everywhere on
Just
this
written on the
table.
table, scrawled. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
very funny.
Plates cold, untouched. We were just
Yeah, like thank you, Gino's Bay Ridge in Brooklyn. You guys, great. Thank you for helping us break Squire wide open. But yeah, so basically that's kind of how it was. We collaborated really deeply on like the concept building. We put the pitch together, and then when the time came that like, okay, we found, we went with that original editor that reached out to Sara.
Yeah.
Um,
Even though like 5 other publishers were part of the bidding, the first person who reached out to us was like, I think you should write a book, ended up fighting for us the hardest.
yeah.
Shout out Andrew.
Yes.
But it was a pretty wild ride, and we definitely pulled Isa and all these other characters kind of from each other. It was very much like a back and forth conversation all the way until the last page was drawn.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that by the time it came time for us to do our own individual roles, which was for me scripting and for Sara adapting that script into the graphic format, and drawing it all, we kind of were in constant communication. We already knew what we needed to do. So there was already kind of like a level of trust and understanding there. I still think that like, yeah, with comics, like that level of collaboration is kind of what made this book work. As well as it did. It's just we were just like we were on the same
Nadia
wavelength,
spoiled the shit out of me. She let me change up whatever I wanted. There'd be pages where she's like, do whatever you want. It's a fight. It ends like this. And I'm like, yay. And now I can't work with any other author unless they let me desecrate their work.
I mean, that's the thing about I think about comics that people don't realize when kind of talking about it, is that like the roles are not equal. Sara has the heavier workload, and I know that. It's like a much more physically demanding and time-consuming job. While I can write multiple books in a year, Sara cannot do that. Sara will be drawing one book for like 2 years. So I recognize that, like, I think that, when we talk about this, it's sort of like, yeah, both of us are equally important to the concept and existence of Squire. It could not be the book it was without each other and our collaboration. But when we talk about sheer labor, like, I cannot be precious about my scripts. Like, I'm not, like, you are doing the heavy work, and the point of collaboration is that I know you're going to adapt what I'm saying. Like, you got to have that trust, I think. So for any future script writers,
when I was
just
working on my most recent picture book, and the editor was like, you could change this character needs to change their pose. They're supposed to be balancing on their right foot instead of their left foot. And I was like, Nadia would have let me change the script so that it fit. It's easier to change a 4-letter word than an entire drawing. But the work's the work, whatever.
Pretty much.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I loved like listening to your journey and like how that all came together, and like the way you guys bounce back and forth between each other. Even in conversation, I can't even imagine like the collaborative process that went into like making this happen. I'm just so curious, how long was the process? I know like the story like started as like a school project, but then like from like when you were like, okay, I'm gonna try to find a co-author to like publication, like how long was
Yeah.
that whole process?
So literally a week after I walked across the graduation stage, I did graduate, spoiler alert, despite my insistence. I got on a plane and I went to Turkey and Jordan. I hijacked the family vacation and I started doing research while I was abroad. So that I was taking every kind of reference photo, visiting a lot of the settings that you actually see in the book. Like if you look at the very cover, fun fact about this, the cover of Squire is based off of like a picture of my sister, like sitting on the Roman ruins in Jordan in an area called Jeddah. And I wanted these areas to feel recognizable, feel real, because they are. Surprise. The same way that we know where Game of Thrones is shot at, we know where King's Landing is. I wanted people to know that there was this fantastical element to these real locations and places. So we worked on the pitch all throughout the summer, and that involves, you know, having a paragraph saying like what the story is about and why you're the best people to do it.
And that was what, summer 2018.
Summer 2018. Oh yeah, I forgot the year. So 2018, we put together the pitch, and our agent is like, listen, New York Comic Con's around the corner. All editors are going to be there shopping for their next books and stuff, and they're going to be looking for talent. You need to be in their inbox before they get on the show floor. Mm-hmm. And so I'm up at like 4 a.m. Thursday before New York Comic Con, like desperately trying to finish the last of the sample pages. Yeah. And I shoot it off, I think like 6 a.m. on Thursday.
And I grew up in New York, so I was at New York Comic Con. I'd been, so I was like the person on the floor physically and and I was like, and it was like waiting on the email, and it's like,
Yeah. So that happened. By December, we started talking to different publishers. And then anyone who's even a little bit familiar with books, the process of making books, knows that it moves very slowly. So it takes like 5 months to get a contract. Yeah. So I don't think we actually started literally working on it until 2019, 2020.
So I wrote the script in 2019. Basically, like, we pitched it, the book got picked up at the end of 2018. We waited like 5 months for the contract, and then I wrote the script like around mid to late, mid 2019, and then and then Sara had it for the rest of that time.
So it was 2019. The Squire was the script was mostly done, and then I was working on the drawing kind of bit by bit. Pandemic happened. I started a company by accident, and so that delayed things. And then so it was like done by 2020, like end of 2020. It was done. And then it didn't hit the shelf until like 2022.
Yep, that's right. It was supposed to come out fall 2021, but because of the pandemic, we got delayed to March 2022.
Yeah.
And that's when it came out. Yeah, so that's, there was like...
So what is that, like 3 years? 3 years of actual production?
Yeah, but then when you have the because, you need to... I think for me, for all of the graphic novels I've worked on, it's like at least a year of just like from finish to actual publication.
Takes time.
Yeah, it does.
Wow, that feels like such a process.
Sure is.
Yeah.
As you guys know. So we're going to dive into our next question, which is, the book's message encourages critical thinking and self-reflection, especially as it relates to your identity. If you feel comfortable, can you share any personal experiences or moments that inspired or shaped the ideas surrounding Squire?
Like I mentioned before, Nadia and I pulled this story kind of from each other. We talked about like how the first few conversations we had, we were just asking each other, like, what are you interested in? You know, what kind of stories do you already love? And as we talked more and more, this original concept of it being like a super high fantasy tale, we realized we wanted it to be a lot more grounded and relevant to the sort of experiences that me and Nadia personally had as two Arab American kids growing up in the shadow of 9/11, where you are guilty until proven innocent, and you're like a literal kid being asked to deal with the consequences of these like global events, you know, like it is actually affecting your day-to-day interactions. So
I had mentioned that I like growing up in Brooklyn, so I was in New York when 9/11 happened. And I grew up in an Arabic neighborhood, and like I'll never forget the shudder, the way that people instantly shuttered their storefronts. Like everyone knew what was coming. And that kind of like and then kind of like you do that, but then you go on Disney Channel and you see like, you know, Hillary Duff being like, support our troops. And you're like, what do I
bizarre.
Yeah, how am I supposed to feel?
You
know?
Can't open a Game Informer magazine without seeing like drafting advertisements. Like that sort of stuff was touching, like, again, every aspect of our lives when we were literal children. And when I wrote this book alongside Nadia, and when we created it, I was a high school teacher at the time, and I was watching my like, you know, 10th graders and 9th graders talk about extremely serious issues. And in a way, I wasn't hearing any of my peers do. So they were the ones being like, okay, well, this happened. Let's go protest. The Parkland shooting walkout happened. And these 17-year-olds and 16-year-olds were getting dunked on by adults for daring to say, like, this is killing us and we need to stop. And I think like that's what attracted me so much to YA and to drawing like specifically this age group, because they're the only ones who, one, have the facilities to understand what's happening around them, and the optimism and that real drive to understand like this can change and it has to change. And what sort of role you play in it.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because we as a culture fixate on like the minds of teenagers. Like so much of culture is about like kind of trying
coming
to
of age.
Coming of age. Yeah. But you know, we also give there's no power. Like we don't give these kids any kind of power. They
ask for permission to use the bathroom until like June of your last year of high school, and then guess what? You can sign up for the army. Like,
yes,
amazing.
exactly. And you know, so yeah, we wanted really to kind of explore what happens when your identity, when your kind of coming of age is kind of set between two literally warring factions, right? You've got, you know, you're growing up in the empire and your very existence is at odds with what the empire wants. But what is the empire going to do? How is it going to use it? And, you know, for us, like history, we're both big history nerds, but kind of the creation of history, kind of like the history that we're taught and how flimsy it is. And it's, you know, it's not until college actually that you're ever taught that to question the history that you're told, you know? So like, but that's not the experience. So what happens then to someone who, let's say, they do not, you know, for many reasons, cannot continue on to college and in fact have to join the military to survive? What are they going to be taught?
Which is the story of a lot of our peers and even our families, right? Like the Arab American experience is, if you're not afraid of like someone in your family or community being deported themselves, you were getting approached by the US Army to be a translator, to be an interpreter. Be one of the good ones. Tell us how you're going to support this country, not like those other, you know, bad Arabs.
I was reached out to when I was graduating high school, basically being like, hey, we'll give you a certain amount of money if you come translate because we want to like distribute rice. And I was like, I'm not going to be distributing rice. Come on. You know?
From the chat, we have the question, any plans on reuniting on another book? There is, in fact, another book in the works. We don't know what it is yet. We'll tell you when we do.
Yeah.
But there is one in the works.
It is. Okay, there was like so much to tackle there. But thank you so much for sharing. As you were like telling like both of your personal experiences, I was literally like thinking about how it parallels to Squire, and like so much of it parallels. And I think that's why, or like maybe not exactly why, but like one of the many reasons why I particularly really enjoyed it, because I could see it reflected in real life, even though it is like fantasy and like I'm no longer however old the main character is, but I'm like an adult, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was literally crying as I was reading this book, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm crying, but as you're explaining your experiences, I'm like, this is why I'm crying.
I think that we even when we first talked about it, like the book is such obviously like a celebration and a love letter of our heritage and our culture, but we felt like even kind of anyone whose existence is contrary to, kind of the
It's an immigrant kid book.
Yeah, it is. Anyone who's
Mhm.
like it's anti-empire, anti kind of the white fascist root of
Well,
history.
I would even say
know.
any fascism. Like we
It's
were
true.
looking at the way Ottoman Empire was
That's
fucking
true.
around, and we're like, this ain't cute either. Like
There are
I'm
no
gonna
good
borrow your
empires.
armor, but y'all aren't off the hook either.
Yeah. No,
Mhm.
100%. Yeah, just kind of any kind of like anything. There are no good empires. There's
Yeah.
no way of justifying it. And I think that that's ultimately like anyone who has experienced the hand of being colonized by someone is going to, I think, relate to the
Mhm.
core feeling of the book.
One of my favorite quotes in this book, I was like shoving it at everyone's faces, was when Isaac gets told like, "Oh, just be glad, girl, that you're on the stronger side of the conflict." I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh my god, that hits so hard."
Mm-hmm. That's real. Like there are some of these conversations in the book that, we kind of had them one to one. Stuff that Hind was saying, General Hind, our antagonist in the book.
Was
We've
based on
all
someone I
heard
knew.
this. Yeah. The conversation with the parents, right? It's like, are you going to tell people who you are? Do you understand what comes with that? Whether it was, putting on the hijab or being like, like taking on a very Arab sounding name when you went in the world. I have many friends who were not raised with an Arabic name because their parents were like, on paper, at the very least, we can kind of protect you there. Visibility is a huge conversation in a lot of minority communities, and some people don't have the privilege of being able to take off the thing that makes them other.
100%. Yeah.
Yes. What you just said kind of reminds me of like the balance of assimilating and embracing your culture. I feel like especially as an immigrant kid, because
Mhm.
I think I was like I can't remember if it's like a book I read or reflecting on my own personal experiences or like my friends' experiences, where it's like about how like immigrant kids like can't necessarily or no don't necessarily like speak their home language,
Mhm.
and then like they do that because their parents want them to assimilate, and then they give them like American sounding names because
Mhm.
they want them to assimilate, but then in turn of doing that they like create a greater distance between their identity.
Yeah.
That's not
There's
really
so
a
many
question, but it was just a
open mic
thought.
night poems about this exact
Oh
topic.
yeah, no, like
We're
I
all going through it.
I know so many, I know so many people who, yes, like even my own cousins who are like, don't speak Arabic. And now my aunts have changed their minds about it. And they're
Yeah.
like, okay, now we need to teach the kid Arabic. Like,
Mhm.
there's so much complication, and there's so much like whether you like it or not, you will internalize this. Like
Mhm.
you will not be unaffected by moving through the world and seeing the world react like this to you.
And you see this in the spectrum. Like, there's a reason why there's 8 goddamn main characters in Squire. Don't do that. If you're doing your first book right now, you're an aspiring author somewhere. Don't do that. Don't give yourself so many main characters. But aside, because we wanted to show like how all these different kids from all these different backgrounds and motivations, like they still came to be a part of this big machine, of this empire making project.
And they're from
Um,
so many different reasons and ways, from like
yeah.
class to idealism to
Mhm.
legacy. Like there are so many ways that bring people into the hands of the military, but they all end up there.
Yeah.
So
And they
that's
all end
actually
up
a
doing the same thing. Yeah.
so that's actually a perfect segue into our next question, which is
Let's
Squire
go.
obviously has a large cast of characters. So aside from our main character Isa, did you have a favorite character to create? Or on the flip side, who was like the most challenging character you enjoyed like unlocking?
I can say on the art side of things, especially, General Hind was hard because I wanted her to be like very imposing and dramatic and, you know, chin up, shoulders down, kind of like Disney villain attitude. But I had to kind of slowly introduce that. And so I had to be very careful, like, you know, how do I show her expression here? You know, what's her kind of demeanor here? How do we slowly build this up until you have that final face off and you know, confrontation where she just goes nuts, very like Azula in the Agni Kai sort of moment.
And she was very also like Princess Mononoke, Lady Eboshi inspired too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
There are definitely, like, I don't know if anyone can catch up, but there are definitely some like references in that final battle in particular between like Lady Eboshi of Princess Mononoke and San in that final face-off.
Yeah, 100. Yeah.
But yeah, I would probably say like she was the most challenging. And of the favorites, I think I always had a soft spot for Doric. He's like our longest. He's the character who stayed with me the longest throughout, you know, the different iterations of the project. Big buff man. What's not to love?
I think for me, the most challenging character to crack was Basim.
Mm-hmm.
He was like very much like the kind of, you know, like Zuko-esque kind of like very that, but I wanted him to be very real. Like I didn't want to just copy that, you know. I wanted to like create kind of an interesting dynamic between him and Husni, especially. So kind of balancing him as like a villain who has a very understandable reason for why he is like this, and kind of showing that heart underneath the pain. It was like very, very like was a very tough balancing act. But I think
similar to what we were saying, right? Like he's still a kid. Like at the end of the day, like yes, he may be antagonistic towards our main character, but like you see how he's being manipulated just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And you understand that, you know, there's this pressure on him, just like all the other characters. He's not that far off.
And
he's a fun character to write.
Yeah, he has more in common with them than he has against them, but he cannot see that because it literally challenges his entire worldview. You know,
and he has the most to lose like societally, you know. The son of a senator, this prestige, this, you know, namesake, it would affect his world. It would entirely take it apart if he were to accept this truth, which is why like towards the end of the book, spoilers, he can't fully come to terms with the truth that everyone else has.
He still has his own journey to go on. So I'd say he was the most challenging, but I also love him because I fucking loved Zuko so much. like ooh,
but he's still like season 1 Zuko. He ain't there yet.
No, I know, but I still loved season 1 Zuko too. I was a problem. Like, I was like, I can fix him. But anyway, and then like my favorite character, honestly, I think Hind was fun to write because and it's funny because people have asked
Notice
me
the parallel. Her favorite, my challenge. That's comics, baby.
That is comics. I think for Hind, like it was nice to finally give a voice to everything that I have heard in my life and internalized. It was nice to kind of give that a face and a name and be like, and to like write it down plainly, because when you grow up with these, like you hear these things over your lifetime. You hear the things Hind says over your entire lifetime, here or there, and it's like worms in the brain. It's whispers in the ear, and you take it in and you think about it. And it was nice to kind of exercise that for my spirit, exercise the inner Hind within, and be like, no, I see you, I see what you're saying, and I refuse to be part of this.
Yeah.
So
she says the quiet part out loud in a couple moments.
Yeah. And
you're
nice
like, it's cathartic. Like I think every immigrant kid has this moment where like someone just straight up acknowledges like how hard this shit is. And you're like, you're right. Oh my God. Like everyone has that come to Jesus moment.
Yeah. And I think that like for Isa and Hind's relationship, it's like, Isa, like, Hin sees all things. Like, she is a protagonist in her own mind. Like, she thinks that she is literally, like, saving this country by just, like, culling the wheat from the chaff, basically. She's like, I'm going to, like, this isn't about me, this is about history. But of course, all pedagogues say that. And of course, it's always about them. But like, as a Palestinian, who pays American taxes, I think about how that money is being used to literally fund a colonizing state against people I am literally related to. I think about my own, unwilling and at times like, what am I willing to stomach? What am I not? How does this proximity of challenge power kind of change things for me? So like, yeah, I think I wanted Isa. I wanted Isa to kind of experience that too. I wanted Isa to be like, Hind is like, what happens when you seize power? What does it look like? Yeah.
I have so many thoughts.
Lay it on
always.
us.
Okay, so first, I was thinking about how you made the Zuko comparison, which made me like wonder: is there going to be like a Zuko season 3 Zuko for Squire potentially in the works? I'm just putting it out in the ether, meaning like,
Maybe.
are you potentially?
we have
would you write a
another
sequel?
book with HarperCollins. It is literally called YA graphic novel by Sara Alfageeh Nadia Shammas. That's what it says on the contract. And they're like, whatever it is that you do next, just let us know. And so we're sitting here being like, what would happen in Squire 2? Fuck if I know. But but I'll let you know if we figure it out.
Yeah. Stand by.
Yeah. We have
Sounds
our
good.
own,
I'm like putting it
feels
out
we're
there that I
writing
would
fan
love to
fiction.
read it.
Yeah, it does feel like writing fan fiction. Now that whenever we talk about Squire now, it's like we're like, are we just like making fanfic of our own work?
Yeah, I'm like, oh wait, we can just decide that this happens with this character if we do a next book. So it's kind of like a little intimidating because the world's our oyster. There's so many possibilities, but also that's terrifying because there's so many possibilities.
Yeah.
So we think about Basim a lot. He hangs out in the brain.
A lot. Yeah.
I think Isa's story's done. I will say that. No promises, but I think specifically Isa's story, we have shared it to the extent like this is what we had inside of us. It is now out in the world. We are content with that. Yeah. We left a lot of questions open on purpose because I don't think you can neatly solve the problem of empires in a 300-page comic. I would challenge anyone who said they could. So we wanted a very tight, contained story around Isa, but there's still this whole other world and all the ramifications.
And I think that was also important to us because like we are not making a chosen one story here. Isa is the last person who should be doing this probably. She is a tiny, unskilled girl who is doing her best. And, that's kind of it. Like, she's not particularly brilliant. She wasn't born for this. But we wanted her vision. So she's not going to change the world literally. Like, she can change individual characters' worlds, but she's not, one person cannot change the world, nor should they, because if this is a book for kids, we don't want to tell kids like it is one person's individual responsibility to save the world, especially not brown kids, because it's not. It's hard. Yeah, I think
it's institutional.
Yes, so I think that we wanted to leave Squire off in a way to say that like there are ways to there is no way to there are ways to challenge institutions, but it will take time. It will take people. It will take. It is an ongoing process of people deciding generation after generation to keep moving forward in the right direction. And so like this is Isa's part, but everyone else has their story too.
From the chat, we have trying something wildly different would be dope, maybe sci-fi. You cannot make me draw mechanical things ever. I refuse. Too hard. Anyways, but also I want to shout out Ramzi Hassan, who made that comment, is a fantastic up-and-coming author in their own right and creator. Recently debuted with like a fantastic Marvel Spider-Verse one-shot. So Shout out Ramsey.
Hey, Ramsey.
Okay, I think we're going to segue into one of our last questions about plot and characters, which is about the ending. You kind of already touched on it already about like Isa's choices and like why you made the ending the way it was. But as you were drafting the novel, did you always have this specific ending in mind? And also, why did you choose for our antagonist to never turn good?
So the main antagonist in this book, General Hind, who is kind of leading this whole school and training program for squires, she, like, as you could see in the final confrontation, there is no willingness to accept this other person's reality, because it doesn't make sense to them. Like, logically, this is the best path forward. It is also, of course, the most beneficial to her. It sure does cut out that way for a lot of people who defend these ideologies. Everybody's the hero in their own mind. General Hind is absolutely doing good and moving this story forward in her own perspective. And that was kind of our goal with all the characters, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone needed to feel real enough to that if the next chapter started from their point of view, you thought they were the main character entirely. And that's sort of the attitude I like to bring to any character that I create is
1000%.
like, do they feel like this is their story as much as anyone else?
And I think that that's why also we spend so much time in the world building, because we wanted to create a world with systems that make sense, that basically, because like these systems, this is the world that our characters came from. Like the systems in place and the environment they grew up with is what formed them and also informs their stakes in the colonial project. So like we wanted like it specifically like, yeah, like every character has their own world, that they're moving within and like holding and carrying with them. And that informs all their actions and all their attitudes. So like we wanted that to be like very true to all of them.
And as you could see specifically with our two adult characters, you have Hind, the general for the school, and then you have Doric, this disgraced knight. And they were on the same path. One was a mentor to the other, spoilers, but they diverge at one point. And you see what it looks like to acknowledge, the problems of this world and still be a part of it, as in the case of Doric. And then you have this other character who does exactly as they were meant to do and rises to the top and has all of this prestige and is the example of everything good that can happen to you. A little bit of a Easter egg that I did was, so when Isa steals that first poster advertising the Squire training program, you'll see a young knight sitting on horseback in all the regalia. That is young Hind that you see much later on. She is exactly what Isa could become. And they make it very clear, like, the access to this world is there, and she succeeds. She succeeds in becoming a squire.
Hind literally says to her, I gave you your ending already. Yeah. I gave you your happy ending. I made you a squire. You literally made a record. So all you had to do was be a token.
Yeah. And she can't accept that is first of all, that's truth for a lot of situations. And like ultimately everyone kind of has their role to play when it comes to empire and colonization and all of that. And you have to decide, will you benefit and play your role and have your nice ending and everything kind of thought out for you? Or do you dare try to flip the script and deal with the consequences that come with it? A lot of people don't succeed down that path. We saw how other people didn't succeed.
Yeah, I like there's an essay in the back of the book where I say this, but I think that, in this ending, we talk about wanting to keep things open, but I think a big reason of that is also because like we are not trying to answer for anyone individually, like, hey, what is your proximity to power? How do you deal with that? I think we're trying to open the question to be like, hey, the things you thought you believed about yourself and the place that you live in, consider that maybe it's not true. And if you do that digging and you find that you are the beneficiary of someone else's eradication or suffering, like, what does that mean to you? How do you move forward? Like, I think that we wanted the ending to open the conversation rather than close it.
It's the end of the book, but it's the start of hopefully that thought process for young readers and older readers alike.
Yeah. Wow. When our friend told us to read this book because she thought it was good, I was not expecting this whole thing of like self-reflection and internal like conflict. Like, oh my gosh, I'm moved. I loved it. But we want to segue now into some fun questions, like a quick little speed round. So
we promise this book is fun.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It is like, it's so silly. We're just like, I mean, you've read it, I think.
Yeah, there's a tonal shift, you know. The first half is like summer camp, and then the second half
we
is like
really did do that. Like, it's so funny. I had one friend who literally did say to me, like, for the first 100 pages, I was like, Nadia, am I gonna like have to stop talking to you? Because like, are you like writing a pro-military book? What is going on? And like the flip, and they're like, phew.
This book was so like, I think everyone that in our book club, or most of the people in our book club who've read it, they marathoned it. So because they're like, I need to know what happens. Because I remember like the first day that we announced the book, they started it, and then a couple hours later they're like, I finished.
A little painful as someone who's
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It is what it is. It is funny though that it's like you can spend 2 years actively working on a project and then people finish it in 3 hours. And I'm like, but could you just go back and look at it a little longer? Just trace your finger over the lines. Let me feel something.
We'll intentionally go back and just like admire every single panel.
And that's why I can't like read reviews, you know. I can't be like, I devoured this in one sitting, and I was like, that must be nice.
No, for me, and like this is the difference between writing, because for me, I'm just like, oh my god, thank you. Oh my god, yay.
I'm glad, but still.
Okay, so diving into our speed round, the first question we want to ask you is, what's a book you both recommend to everyone?
Everyone? Oh, I'm hesitant to do that.
I know, we're sorry.
I've started looking at my bookshelf immediately. I'm like, oh no.
Okay. This is a classic, and it's a safe bet because I feel like everyone has already encountered it in some way. Straight up Calvin Hobbes. Calvin Hobbes is great. I learned so much about pacing, about drawing, expressions, how to do like really beautiful poetic moments on one page and then stupid jokes on the other. It was really, really formative to me. I read that long before I ever thought I would get into art, because I didn't start drawing until like my last year of high school. You know, like I was late to the game. But it's interesting that the things that impacted me the most weren't the things I was reading when I started drawing, but the stuff that I had been processing and you know, drawing and learning like way back. And maybe controversial opinion, read the classics. Not to be a fucking teacher for a minute, but like read the classics, the literary classics that shaped a lot of stories as we know it right now, and think about how you'd fucking flip the script, how you would change the hero's journey. Like, I was so inspired by Knights in Shining Armor and King Arthur in the Round Table. Like, I read those books while in Jordan, and that was a direct pipeline to me, you know, creating Squire, because I was like, I love this and I love this, and people are already used to these tropes. Like, what can I do better? So yeah, that's my little tip.
I'm going to give this one. I don't know. Have y'all read it?
It's on my TBR.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's okay. It's so funny because the same friend who recommended Squire is also the one who's pushing the magic fish.
I pulled this one out because I was like, I genuinely can't think of one that I recommend to everyone, but I could recommend this to everyone. I think The Magic Fish is an amazing book. It's by Trung Lin Win. It's basically about a young boy who is kind of dealing with his queerness and his mother, who had recently immigrated, and them kind of reading fairy tales to each other in a way to connect. And it's really, really, really beautiful. I mean, the illustration work is incredible. And
the author's also a homie, so shout out
yes, yes, Trung. We love Trung. In this house, we stand. Yeah. So I would put that one up as a rec for sure.
Amazing. So second question, what is your favorite Asian food or favorite food in general?
Ooh, I mean, oh no, this is cheating. I just love going out for Korean barbecue, just straight up.
Okay, but, yeah, no, that's so real.
Oh God, I'm gonna fuck up the pronunciation. I also love oh God, what is it? The rice cake with the tomato. Yeah, that one.
Oh.
Okay. I love that.
Okay.
Not healthy, but I would eat it forever.
Well, okay, so oh my God, my favorite Arabic food is maftool. It's a Palestinian dish. It is like larger couscous with like chicken and onion and tomato. I love it. And I started making my own chili crisp, and that is really Sola El Hawaii's chili crisp recipe is so good. It's like shallots and garlic and peanuts and my own chili. I don't know. I love dim sum. I love K-barbecue. I love Asian food. Asian food is just top tier.
It's just better.
It's really better.
Got it figured out.
It's really better. You should see my pantry over there. My God.
Probably like something I honestly could imagine Isa eating as well. And I literally made it yesterday because it's such a comfort food to me. It's like the quintessential, like you're an Arab kid and your mom made something for your lunch. It's fatayr blahma. And so it's just a ground beef spiced like flatbread. Super easy to make, extremely yummy. Hits the spot every time.
I like mjaddara. That's also mentioned in Squire. It's lentils, rice with crispy onions. I love mjaddara.
Oh, mjaddara is like what your mom's like, oh, we have food at home. We can't stop.
Yeah, but
you're like, oh,
yeah, I know, but I know, but now that I'm an adult, I'm just like, lentils.
That's how I know we've grown.
Okay. Question 3. What's your favorite game? Hard question.
Ooh, you're really doing the hard hitters.
Yeah,
I could talk about the fucking ending of Squire all day, all night, and I'm getting stumped by this.
I got some. All right. Hades is one. I love Hades. A game called Night in the Woods. I adore this game. A game called 80 Days. I love it very much. It's a narrative game. A lot of the games that I like are like indie kind of narrative. I'm playing some Zelda now. It's great.
For me, anyone who meets me, there immediately a timer shows up over my head, counting down to when I finally mention Dragon Age Origins. Like, it is such a formative game for me. I played that at like the age of 14, maybe a little too young. And it is everything I love in fantasy. It is such a classic fantasy D&D campaign ass story. It's what got me into role-playing games, which is like my full-time, situation right now. I just love it so much. It's so ugly now, but I love it.
Yeah. Man, there's so many great games out there. And it's funny because Sara and I now are both game developers as well. So I feel like we play a lot more of them.
Oh, I play a lot less because I can't look at a screen at the end of the day because it's all I think about throughout the day. Similar to comics, actually. Like I read very few fiction comics while working on Squire, unless I was looking at them like being like, how did you lay out this page? Or where can I get an idea for this fight? Because they were just not fun to me when I'm in the thick of it. I read a lot of depressing nonfiction instead. So
I feel like I've read less comics.
That makes sense.
But I read a lot more manga now.
I need to get that. Yeah, that was something that like we could have mentioned more about, but it's like manga was extremely formative.
Oh yeah, way more than anything.
Yeah,
we had
a true like recommend to everyone series. Read Full Metal Alchemist.
Yes,
experience joy.
Yeah,
like
it's the best.
So much like when I looked at Fullmetal Alchemist and like all the nuances and the range of characters and
It's
because
perfect.
it's also about, you know, empire and power
Yeah.
and all of that.
It's a perfect story.
And thinking about, you know, the character Scar and his whole situation with war and how he goes from being an antagonist to
one of the best compliments we received was someone wrote an essay about a Squire that I read that was literally like, Squire is FMA if Scar was the main character, and I was like, I'm gonna drop dead. This is the best compliment I've ever received.
We set out to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we recommend.
Yeah, that's the real rec.
That's another any story where it's like they don't talk down to teenage. Like I love a story that is like, you're the main character, you spunky 15-year-old. But also, I'm so sorry, like that you're going through this. That's kind of Fullmetal Alchemist of like all these adults looking at this literal child, being like, Jesus, that's a rough time you're having.
I'm rewatching FMA Brotherhood right now, and I'm literally like, God, I need to be meaner to my kids in books. God, I gotta mess them up. This is another rec to everyone. XXXholic.
Oh, we're getting the deep cuts now.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just remembered it and I was like, I can't not talk. If we're talking manga, I can't talk about, you know, her.
Yeah. I mean, on the note of like very clearly written for a female audience, drawn for a female audience kind of stuff. Like I learned so much about pacing as an artist, like how much time to spend on each moment from romance manga, where it's like a gasp deserves a whole page.
Yeah.
A character's reaction needs to like take up as much time as the thing that caused it. And I think that is the quintessential difference between Western comics and Eastern comics, where like you look at a Marvel comic and you know, no shade there, but it's like just jammed. It's like there's a robot and a missile strike and someone's punching. And I was like, could I get just 10 seconds to breathe and process what just happened? Like, can it not just be 10 pages of explosions?
Yeah, 1000%. Squire is very manga inspired.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny because our second to last question was originally going to be like, we both heard that you love Fullmetal Alchemist and we wanted to ask you like why you loved it so much, but then you just naturally segued into it, and we love that for you.
We've only done 60 interviews about the creation of Squire.
Also, it's fresh on my mind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, final question. Are you working on anything new right now, and what can your fans of yours expect, aside from that we know that miscellaneous YA comic is coming soon from you two?
I mean, yeah, that's the main thing. For me, I just finished work on my picture book, so which is very different from Squire. It is like all sparkles and joy, and well, it kind of has that Isa energy. Like in any work that I do, you're gonna see, you know, the wild expressions and high energy, scrappy young characters. And she's also someone who's like being told like, no, you can't do this. No one looks like you in this. But instead of becoming a knight, it's about becoming a figure skater. So yeah, it's cute. So yeah, I would say like if you are, you know, someone who's into like Muslim stories, or you know someone in your life who would appreciate a story like that, keep your eye out for that. Otherwise, I'm gonna be knocking out some illustrations and stuff like for fun for once. And keep an eye out on what I'm working on with Team Multiverse over at One More Multiverse. If you're into role-playing games and fantasy and all of that stuff, and you like, you know, Dungeons and Dragons and other systems like it, because that's what keeps me busy otherwise. Nadia, how about you?
Yep. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, I've got the Dead by Daylight comic. Issue 1 is coming out in June. I've got Confetti Realms, which is the kind of horror-ish adventure comedy, very Goosebumps kind of vibes. That's coming out in the fall. And Thirsty Suitors, which is the main thing I'm working on right now with Outer Loop Studios. And, you know, it's a great team there. South Asian queer mess. If you're interested in that, keep your eyes out open.
Woo! We will make sure to keep an eye out for all of those. And I'm still very selfishly very excited for upcoming Sara Nadia collaboration. Who knows what? So we'll make sure.
TBD.
We're brewing. We're
we're
deep in
brewing.
it. It's kind of funny to like be on the other end of this, and you know, I'm still texting Nadia like 3 a.m. ideas, and I was like, you know, what'd be cool?
Yeah, it's very back to the like, you know, I saw this rock.
Yeah,
and I was thinking,
it's so cool.
yeah, and I was thinking,
like I go to any museum, I pick up any book, and I'm
Yes.
like, Nadia, I have an idea.
yeah,
And
fully.
it's like added to the list of 3,000 potential
yeah,
ideas.
we'll figure it out.
It's not for lack of ideas. It's about focus. We need to focus. And we both are like diagnosed ADHD.
Yeah,
so
we both
who
have been
knows?
diagnosed with ADHD. So like big gremlin energy over here, just
Yeah.
Sara and I being like just the
Yeah.
whole time.
Well, regardless, it's still so much fun to hear from you, and we're very, very excited to see with whatever you guys pursue next. Thank you again so much for joining our book club. This is definitely like one of our favorite conversations. It was just really fun
thank
to watch
you.
you guys bounce off of each other. And yeah, we will for sure go back and reread Squire and appreciate the art for all its glory.
I'll have to. I'm just being a big baby.
No, I personally definitely want to reread it. But yes, thank you again so much. Thank you everyone who joined us. We loved having you. And if you're interested in joining us for our June book of the month, we'll be reading This Time It's Real by Anne Liang. And also on Saturday, June 3rd, we are going to be hosting a virtual book conference. So stay tuned for more details then.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.